International Committee of the Red Cross, UNICEF, and a number of NGOs as well. They are responding to the very basic needs of the population there, whether it's shelter, food, water, and sanitation. The challenges, of course, right now in northern Rakhine is access, and we're very concerned about the challenges faced by our organizations, and as Mr. Bobiash has mentioned, have been very vocal about seeking access for our partners to work there. Our assistance is also, of course, focused on the results of the movement of the population into Bangladesh. We had programming already in place before the current movement of the population, responding to previous violence and previous movements of population into Bangladesh. So in that fashion, we were actually able to provide funding right away. Our assistance was already on the ground and responding in Bangladesh when the current round of violence happened. Subsequent to that, we have made additional allocations to Bangladesh as well as to work in Rakhine, recognizing, of course, that northern Rakhine is very difficult, as we've heard from other witnesses, for partners to work, so the very limited possibility for action there.
Am I missing something here? When these things happen, there was always the DART team that went in to do this sort of work with water and so on and so forth. Has there been any talk of using the DART team? It seems time is marching on.
Yes, that's a very good question. In general, DART is used in response to natural disasters, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, etc. And secondly, DART generally is only used when it is requested by a recipient government, and neither of those factors are at play here.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Senator McFedrin, Senator Obidvar, and we'll have to wrap it with that because we do have
thank you, panel. Chair. Thank you very much. Mr. Bobiash, you just mentioned that you wish that to have the leaders in Myanmar to have dialogues between the leadership in the country. We know that Aung San Suu Kyi, she does not control the military. And the military, if concerning the security, it's absolutely the militaries that have the power. How can she have a dialogue with the military who does not answer to anyone?
Well, I think that's obviously one of the challenges she faces, and she obviously has to make a lot of very difficult judgment calls and decisions as to how she is represented and an advocate, obviously, for a democratic Myanmar, and her relationship with the military, which, as you mentioned, does have control over domestic security issues, and that's actually in the Constitution. So obviously I can't speak for her, but she has to make these very difficult judgment calls.
My follow-up, if that's the case, is Canada pursuing any diplomatic pressure to encourage the Myanmar government to modify its constitution so that the government, or so-called the leadership in the government, can have the control over the military?
It's a very interesting question. In fact, we actually have a development assistance project valued at about $5.1 million on the theme of governance. And we are trying to provide assistance to the government by training them and exposing them to Canadian principles such as federalism. And in fact, there was a delegation which came to Myanmar came from Myanmar to Canada a few months ago as part of this program. So we are trying to influence the evolution of government through these kinds of development assistance projects, which we think we have a lot of good information to share with them.
Since you raised the visit of Myanmar in June in Canada, did the government raise the issue of Rohingya refugees with them, with the military presence in there?
I know that the Prime Minister raised that with Aung San Suu Kyi, who came as part of that delegation.
Thank you.
Senator McFedrin, Senator Obidvar, we have to wrap this session up.
Thank you. We're all familiar with Canada's leadership resulting in the Ottawa Treaty on banning of anti-personal mine bans. Can you confirm for us that landmines have been placed along the border of Myanmar and Bangladesh by the Myanmar military?
We are aware that this is the observation made by authorities in Bangladesh, that they do accuse the Myanmar government of using landmines, but we have no independent evidence of our own to corroborate one way or the other.
Thank you.
Senator Odevar.
I want to refer to a proposal, a solution that was put forward by the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina when she called for the creation of safe zones in Myanmar under UN supervision. Is this an idea that is being promoted by the Canadian government in its conversations with with Myanmar?
Canada and most of the like-minded governments do not support the creation of safe zones. And the reason for this is that we think they do not work in the interests of the people in the long term. Conditions in these safe zones tend to become a kind of ghetto, and conditions tend to deteriorate over time. And in a way, their creation is sort of a flight of responsibility.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you gentlemen being here today. You've enlightened us with some new information, which